Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great week out there so far. We're bringing the latest information that we have on Tropical Storm Debby. Debby has continued to bring a lot of impacts over the last couple days across the southeast. Yesterday was a high impact day. We had the tornado risk. We had a few confirmed tornadoes in the Carolinas. We had the heavy rain. Some people did not get as much rain as maybe they thought they were going to get or what was forecast, to be honest with you. We had some dry areas in this storm that developed. In fact, we had some peaks of sunshine across the coastal areas. There's a lot of people who did not expect that. Even I didn't really expect that. But it just happens with these systems. Sometimes you get dry air that kind of wraps around the circulation. But today, I think, is going to trip some people up. I've mentioned over the last several videos that I always thought Wednesday was going to be a little bit of a lull period. That does not mean we're not going to see impacts. We're not going to see rain and these outer bands, even a tornado risk and flooding today. But I think today was always going to be the day where the center of this system was going to be the furthest off the coast of South Carolina. It's already in the process of very slowly strengthening again, but I mean, it's not going to strengthen much between now and the secondary landfall that is now forecast to happen into the coastal areas of South Carolina sometime tonight. So do not let today's impacts think that it's over. All right, I think tonight into tomorrow is going to be the worst day. That's my personal opinion. That's always been my opinion over the last few days. I think winds will be a big factor tomorrow with already saturated soils, and then heavy rain, of course, is going to be another factor tomorrow, along with a tornado threat across the eastern sections of North Carolina. So a lot of our focus is going to be on tomorrow, but we got you covered. We got all the latest information, what's going on with the system right now, all the latest model guidance, impacts, everything will be in this video. And then, of course, we're going to talk about what's going to happen weather-wise across the entire lower 48 for today. Don't ever want to skip out on that. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like, and if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put those in the comments below so I can pray over it. And hundreds, maybe thousands of others will see your prayer request and pray over it also. It's very important. So with all that being said, let's get rocking and rolling here. So this is radar of what's going on with Tropical Storm Debby right at this moment as of around 6:17 a.m. Eastern time to be exact. So you see the cyclonic rotation with this. You got banding features moving into the coastal regions of North Carolina. You see these showers kind of pivoting back this way. And then you even got rain falling back down into Jacksonville. And this is all just rotating around a center of low pressure, which is right around here off the coast of South Carolina. We're going to watch as this continues to somewhat strengthen and then maybe make some sort of landfall into here. I mean, maybe into here or maybe up into the Myrtle Beach area. And then where does it go after that? Does it kind of meander close to the Midlands? Does it kind of go through the PD, or does it kind of go up into the Sandhills of North Carolina? And then what happens after that? Okay, and I know I'm talking a lot on that, but that does matter because I think there's going to be a nasty banding feature that's going to set up across the Carolinas late tonight into tomorrow that's going to catch some people by surprise. And that's why I keep talking about the death. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean in this video. But this is the radar right now. Nothing too crazy going on this morning. And that's kind of what I expected. I thought that this thing was going to be sort of void of convection this morning. If you look at satellite, it does not look impressive at all. You can actually see the actual center of circulation here. But the inner core has completely been shredded. And that is because of land interaction, of course, moving into the Big Bend of Florida the other morning. I think, what was it, Monday morning? Move over North Florida. It sat over the same area of Georgia for like 24 hours yesterday. And finally, it moved off the coastline, but its structure has been completely shredded. It's dried out. And basically, you have to get way away from the center, which is right here, to actually get any shower and storms wrapping around the actual center of circulation. So this is not surprising at all. We were expecting this. Now, does this try to fire up some new convection right in the middle? If it does, then maybe it can surprise us and strengthen a little bit more, but we do not expect that to happen. Remember, once upon a time, I was thinking maybe this had a shot at becoming a hurricane again. That has since passed. I don't think this has any shot of doing it, but we never know. We never know. Right now, it's a 995 millibar low, so the millibar has dropped, which tells us that this has strengthened a little bit. So moving east at 5 miles per hour, so technically still moving further out in the ocean right now, so we got to watch that, but it's a 45 mile per hour tropical storm. If we look at the latest cone from 5 a.m., center of the storm right here, it should strengthen to a 50 mile per hour tropical storm sometime this afternoon, Wednesday, 2 p.m., And of course, if you watched last night's video, you already know this, but the timeline of the center of the storm making landfall, even if it has no convection, but the actual center of low pressure has moved up. So now it's probably going to make landfall sometime in the wee hours of the morning tonight into tomorrow morning. That's why you continue to have these tropical storm warnings up. I think there's a possibility tropical storm warnings could get extended all the way up into Florence, maybe as far back as Sumter, maybe as far back as to Columbia, maybe all the way up to Charlotte. I'll talk about why here in a second. But by the time we're into 2 p.m. Thursday, still a 40-mile-per-hour tropical storm based off the National Hurricane Center cone around 2 p.m. The center of the storm is going to go right through the heart of North Carolina. Greensboro, Asheboro, Fayetteville is going to see the impact of this. And because the center of the storm is going to go here, then, of course, on the right northeast quadrant of the storm, eastern quadrant, is going to go right through the eastern sections of North Carolina and southeast Virginia. So I expect an elevated tornado risk tomorrow more so. And remember, I mentioned that in last night's video. I thought the tornado threat will increase for Thursday tomorrow, and it has. And we'll speak on that too. All right, so we'll kind of get that back off here, and we'll continue to zoom out. And then the cone goes all the way through Virginia by the time, this is up in Maryland, northern VA, 2 p.m. Friday, 35-mile-per-hour post-tropical cyclones, depression basically. And from here to here, basically 12 hours, it covers this much real estate. The center of the storm races off as it gets picked up by a trough and races off through the northeast all the way up into Canada and brings some gusty winds and some heavy rain across the northeast. And we'll talk about that also. More classic look from the National Hurricane Center. There's your classic cone. Look at this, extending all the way up here now. Way up here, north of like Newfoundland, guys. So New Brunswick, you're going to see some impacts from this. Even Nova Scotia and Newfoundland's going to see a little bit of impacts. I just don't think they'll be that drastic, that bad, significant, or anything like that. I really don't. So, watches, warnings, and advisories. We'll see if anything's changed with this. It has not. So you see this red color here? Those are tropical storm warnings, tropical storm watches up for the areas just south of the Outer Banks. So we do have a few counties inland in South Carolina that do have some tropical storm warnings. I could see a few more counties inland, like up to Florence. Sherrill, Camden, maybe up to the Sumter area. Maybe all the way back to Columbia up to Charlotte, because the center of this storm is going to go right through here. Or, maybe west, maybe east of that. And there's going to be some sort of banding feature that sets up west of the system that I think can bring tropical storm force conditions. It even got dicey here yesterday evening here in Columbia, South Carolina, which is where I'm located. And we got a lot of heat really close by, guys. So if we didn't have the cloud cover and stuff and the rain from Debby, it would be very hot out there. We're at least we're avoiding the heat, right? So the latest, let's make sure this is right. Yeah, the latest European model, guys, and we'll kind of go through this quick, and then we'll zoom into some of these models. We'll have a timestamp up for that. Initializing this is a 994, 1 millibar off. A big deal. Not a really big deal here. It's doing pretty well. This will continue to meander off the coast. We'll get into midday today, 994 still. You notice it's not strengthening much. It's not getting down to the low 980s anymore. We get into this afternoon. It never deepens. It honestly never really strengthens. And here it comes inching towards the coastline. Makes landfall sometime after midnight tonight. And this is the feature I want to watch. So this is tomorrow morning, 993 millibar low. Getting well inland, well north of Charleston at this point between Florence and Charleston. You see this banding feature here? I'm going to take a zoomed in look at that. But that is the feature I'm watching from Columbia up to Charlotte, over to Camden, Sumter, Monroe, North Carolina. All these areas I want to watch here. Whatever this does tomorrow, whoever gets under this banding feature in the east and northeast and northern quadrant of, the west to northwest to northern section of this low, it's going to get tropical storm force conditions, I think. I really do. I'm pretty confident in that. This moves right through Charlotte. Moves all the way up to Winston-Salem, Greensboro, Hickory, and then eventually we start to get into tomorrow evening. This is starting to get into southwest Virginia. Brings a big plume of moisture up into West Virginia after midnight tomorrow night. And then this starts to head on up the coast. All right. And then we, take a look at the rest of the northeast here. Here it comes. This will bring widespread rains and gusty winds throughout West Virginia, Pennsylvania, eventually getting up into New York State. This low has really trended west here. Once upon a time, it was showing it like along the I-95 corridor. But we're getting into Friday evening. There could be a little bit of a tornado risk closer to the I-95 corridor because the low is actually moving over here. Of course, the east quadrant of the system. We have to watch that. But a lot of heavy rain has the potential to fall. I mean, from Scranton over to Binghamton. I mean, up to Syracuse, Rochester, maybe even Buffalo, all the way into the Tug Hill Plateau, into the Adirondacks, and eventually this gets up into Quebec and could bring a big-time rainstorm up there too. And as that continues to move off, we'll talk about impacts for this area here in a second. And then we'll just throw a bone to the GFS one more time, because I will say this. The GFS was lost on this making a secondary landfall back into Georgia. But the GFS did have somewhat of the right idea of this being further south all along. Okay, so you gotta throw a little respect to it, throw it a little bit of a bone for that. But the GFS is still further south. In fact, by tomorrow morning, this still has not made a landfall, but finally makes a landfall sometime between tomorrow morning and like midday. Dumps the worst conditions deeper into South Carolina. There's that banding feature still showing up on the GFS. It's just further south and west. And throws it into Charlotte, throws it into the Carolinas. It's just a slower moving setup. Shows the worst of the weather more so tomorrow evening into tomorrow night. And throws a big old rain bomb into VA, West Virginia. And then it's the same feature, if we continue to look up into the northeast with this. It keeps on going and just throws a whole lot of rain across West Virginia, Maryland, up right through the central areas of PA, and then a whole lot of rain kind of Friday night into Saturday morning throughout New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, etc. So now if we take a closer look at the Euro, which is a model that I've always took sides with this entire storm, well, not the entire storm, but over the last several days, I would say, I'm going to initialize this for around 2 p.m. this afternoon. We're getting some banding features that are getting pivoted back into South Carolina. I am going to show North Carolina too, so my friends in North Carolina, hold tight. Don't yell at me. I got you covered here. But you keep this going, right? And we get, come on. Got to talk to us sometimes. Deja vu from yesterday. But we continue to move this forward. I think that between now and maybe this afternoon, it could be a little quiet. Then we start to get into this evening. We're starting to get these bands getting pushed back inland again. You see these splotches of orange and yellow here. This is more intense rain trying to get back to Columbia, definitely over Florence. The low is creeping up very close to the South Carolina coastline. And then it makes some sort of landfall, maybe as early as midnight. I would say between Georgetown and Charleston. Moves in sub, around 990, 992-ish, 3-ish low as a tropical storm. And you see these banding features moving back into Myrtle Beach. So if you don't get much rain today along the coastal regions, don't worry. It's coming this evening. See these banding features wrapping back into Myrtle Beach, getting all the way up to Florence. And then this is my concern. As this moves inland, there's going to be some sort of banding feature in here. This is like 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. This is slamming, getting into Columbia, especially east of Columbia. I mean, this is all the way to Florence. This is all the way up to Chesterfield. This is something I want to really pay attention to right here. That you're going to have very strong winds with this. You're going to have very heavy rain. You're going to have an opportunity for downed trees to fall on power lines because it's saturated soil. And then you got to watch out for this banding feature moving into Myrtle Beach, to Little River, over to Wilmington. That's going to have a tornado threat. That's going to have a flash flooding risk. And then, it shows like Columbia, even back to like Newberry, like Saluda, Rock Hill, getting hit very hard by this feature tomorrow about midday. And finally, maybe this starts to pull out tomorrow evening. And I honestly think Friday will be just fine. Okay, now you go up a little bit up the road here in North Carolina and Virginia. It's around 2 a.m. Thursday. 2 a.m. So like just after midnight tonight. All right, look at these banding features starting to come in here, like just south of Fayetteville. And then by the time we're getting into 5 a.m., we're starting to get into Thursday, 8 a.m. Tomorrow morning around this time. You're starting to get some very strong winds working into Charlotte, Greensboro, Fayetteville, potentially. From Charlotte to Fayetteville to Greensboro, here comes this band moving in, down to Rock Hill, down the I-77 corridor here, interstate area. All right, and then look at this band right here from Wilmington to Fayetteville. And it could get pretty dicey tomorrow. From morning time through the afternoon and evening throughout the Piedmont of North Carolina. I mean, don't let this catch you out by surprise if you live in the Piedmont. This is an area that maybe thought was going to, once upon a time, really miss out on any crazy action. But this could catch some people by surprise that are not getting regular updates. But this feature right here is something that I am concerned about from our friends up here in the Piedmont and Triad of North Carolina. And then one thing I'm concerned about is these banding features right here in eastern North Carolina that's going to have a tornado threat all the way up to Richmond, Virginia Beach, Greenville, Jacksonville, all these areas. But look at this band. This is around 8 p.m. tomorrow. From almost Asheville, Hickory, down to Gaffney, Greensboro, Roanoke. You got to watch out for this band. This could catch some people by surprise. I'm talking about 30, 40 mile per hour wind gusts. I know it doesn't sound bad, but you mix that with very heavy rain falling, saturated soils, you're going to get some down trees, especially weaker trees. Loose limbs are going to fall on power lines, and it might, all of a sudden, I said this in last night's video, it might go from a storm that you're going to forget in a week to a memorable storm because you might lose power for 8 hours and you're sitting there in the living room with candles lit playing board games, which to me stinks, but at the same time, I think that creates some core memories. I think some people would agree. I don't know. Some people might not, but of course, you threaten lives when you lose power. People really, really obviously need power. We all need it. So, but we got to watch this. Okay. If we're talking about the HER model, the HRRR model is a short range model here. What does it show? Well, as we're getting into this morning, and then we're getting into after lunchtime. Okay, it does show the rain on the increase from Myrtle Beach to Columbia down to Orangeburg, even down to Beaufort. It was starting to get these banding features to get reintroduced into the picture again. This is when rain could start to add up again. So you thought that, hey, I think Myrtle Beach has only picked up 4 to 5 inches of rain. So you're definitely behind schedule on the forecasted rain, but it could add up fast. It really could. So we continue to move forward. You're going to have that tornado threat, I really think, from Myrtle Beach to Wilmington today. Up to the southern section of the Outer Banks. As the low is right here on the northeast quadrant of this low, you're going to have these banding features are going to move right in here. This is where it's going to have the best ingredients for tornadoes, as the low is probably centered somewhere around here. So you got to watch out for the tornado threat with any kind of bands that get pushed into the North Carolina, South Carolina coastline. Water is going to start to get pushed off the coastline because the center of this low is starting to move in. And to keep this going here, this is when the storm surge will have an opportunity to go to 2 to 4 feet around the Myrtle Beach area, for example. And we start to get to about the middle of the night tonight. This is when this big band could set up. You continue to get these banding features on this side, even getting some sort of northerly flow action, which kind of reminds me of what happened with Ian when it made landfall in South Carolina. You had this stout northerly flow on the backside of this low that came through and really created full-fledged tropical storm conditions in Charleston. I remember driving through it on the way back home. But that's something you got to watch for down in Charleston. And then we're waking up tomorrow morning to the backside, the western side of this storm, slamming Columbia to Charlotte, and of course the PD of South Carolina. Very strong winds. I wouldn't say very strong. I need to stop saying that. Gusty winds embedded in this heavy rain up here in central North Carolina. I know I keep saying banding features. You're like, Mitch, you sound like a nerd, man. But these bands right here on the northeastern, eastern side of this system have the tornado potential. So Wilmington over to Greenville, up to Raleigh. I'm going to probably forget a couple of names. Many, Fayetteville. You got to watch out because the low is here on the HRRR model. And then you just got these bands, these outer bands that are surging in. Ingredients are there for tornadoes all day tomorrow and today. I think tomorrow is a bigger day. And you keep this going, and we only can go out about another, well, we can still go out the length of the storm just about. And you see how this is getting pushed back into Columbia, for example. This is around 1 p.m. tomorrow. You see this, how Columbia is getting slammed down here? This band right here is what I keep harping on. This is going to be something to watch. Stout flow out the north, tight gradient, gusty winds involved in this area right in here. From Columbia to Charlotte, I think rain could add up quick with this. I think these gusty winds, like I said, I really think this is going to catch some people off guard who, get kind of relaxed today and think that it's over. It's not. It's not over. Tomorrow's going to pack one heck of a punch in the Carolinas. You're going to have the tornado threat in the eastern Carolinas, and then you're going to have the actual band just west of the low associated with the tropical storm that's probably going to be producing some nasty conditions. And then you start to get into tomorrow night, and then you got this another band that just wants to kind of form and start to work its way back inland as the low kind of starts to pick up some forward speed and head on out. And this last little punch right here could deliver one heck of a punch. So it's just something to watch, guys. So I know I spent a lot of time on the Carolinas, and to finally actually talk about impacts here, this is what the National Weather Service is showing between now and Friday evening. Pretty much the rest of the system. It's going for another 2 to 3, 4 inches of rain in the Midlands. You start to get into the PD of South Carolina, anywhere from another 7 to 8 inches of rain. You're thinking there's no way that much more rain's going to happen. But I'm telling you, there is a strong possibility. You know, Charlotte, another 4 to 5 inches of rain. Look at the rain now. Some of these rain totals were overdone, I think, initially up into the triangle of North Carolina. Like Fayetteville up to Raleigh was going for as much as 10 to 15 inches of rain. I don't ultimately think that much rain is going to end up falling. But you never know if you get trapped under one of these bands that are just kind of going over the same area over and over again. You're going to end up being the one that gets 20 inches of rain. But look at that tight gradient back here. That is a tight gradient from hardly nothing to a whole lot of something right into here. So, and I do want to look at like the blend of all models too, guys. And I'll always favor the blend of all models. And it kind of is aggressive with this too, which typically takes the more conservative route. But this is how much rain the Carolinas, much more rain is expected potentially from this system. And now we take a look at the winds. And, the winds are staying pretty conservative, but just sticking with 20 to 30 mile per hour wind gusts across the Carolinas into Virginia. But the core of this system obviously moving right in between Charleston and Myrtle Beach. That's where your 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts are going to be possible late tonight as this makes an actual landfall. And we certainly could get stronger wind gusts inland. In fact, I expect us to. Now, if we're looking at the European model, guys, it kind of follows suit with the National Weather Service forecast. Kind of a secondary spike here. Not as much showing up for the area that the National Weather Service says another 7 to 8 inches of rain could fall. But what I want you to notice here is around the Charlotte, the Piedmont, and the Triad area, where it does have another half a foot of rain, 6 to 8 inches of rain falling. That's because the Euro really likes this area for that secondary landfall after it moves inland and that banding feature to the west side of the low. And you look at the GFS, which has consistently been further west. It throws a little bit more rain back west into western sections of South Carolina. Even, wants to dump another 3.5 inches of rain on Augusta. So that's something to watch, but it likes the PD area, right where the PD kind of turns into the upstate of South Carolina. And there's this weird little dry spot showing up here. So that's something to watch. Now, winds, guys, the Euro, like I said, if something like the Euro happens, you got to watch where that band sets up, north and northwest and west of the low. And I've told you already a couple times that band potentially could set up right into here. This is going to bring kind of a corridor of 40, maybe 50 mile per hour wind gust, combined with a very heavy rain falling. Going to catch some people by surprise Thursday, even up into Charlotte. So I'm telling you, scattered 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts, I think, is a sure bet across areas of the Carolinas. So you continue to move this forward. Something like the HRR model, the HRR model is probably a more worst case scenario. Brings the strongest wind gusts in the Myrtle Beach tonight, Little River with the landfall. And then just inland, scattered 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts are possible with this system. So continue to move forward. You look at storm surge 2 to 4 feet. This storm surge will spike tonight as landfall approaches. And obviously this coastline right here will be on the northeast side of the system. So you'll get that stout onshore flow as the system probably makes landfall right into here. So of course you're going to get the flow that gets pushed up against this region. So this will be where your most enhanced storm surge will most likely be. And it does not take much in Myrtle Beach to Charleston at all to flood at all. So 4 feet of storm surge is going to get areas flooded quick. Okay, so if you look at the tornado threat for today, and if you live in this marginal area, you do have a 2% risk of a tornado. This could uptrend to a slight risk, which would be driven off the tornado threat, which would make it a 5% risk of a tornado. But today, from I would say just north of Charleston, the Myrtle Beach, to Wilmington, all throughout eastern counties of North Carolina, the Outer Banks, a 2% risk of a tornado. Now tomorrow, a higher tornado risk, in my opinion. And I mentioned that last night's video. The yellow area, that's a slight risk, level 2 out of 5. This is where we have a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. There could be a mini tropical tornado outbreak tomorrow in eastern North Carolina, southeast VA. Please, it might not rain all day in this area, but you're going to have these bands that are going to pivot through the area, and it's going to have the opportunity to produce tornadoes in eastern North Carolina to southeast VA. So take that serious. And that is because if you look at the HERD model, starting it off tomorrow morning, okay, we'll take it to about midday. You see how I did that spin? So I'm going to put it in forward motion, right? You see how that area in eastern North Carolina, you got these colors you're seeing here are going just like, well, it's different color. Let's get a different color here. Kind of going like this and like this. This is that southerly low-level jet brought to you by this tropical system on the east side of the system. So, and this entire area where you have these bands kind of come up through, they're dealing with maxed out kinematics, low-level jet, ramping at highway speed just about in this area, and in the low levels of the atmosphere about a mile above our heads in this area. And you're dealing with, obviously, the tropical moist air from this system, from Debby. So you pretty much check off all the ingredients for a tornado threat. There's also a wild card. If you get any dry air that gets tucked in on the backside of the system that feeds the atmosphere into this area, and you get any kind of dry air aloft, that's going to introduce some favorable lapse rates, which we're not going to get into that. But that dry air punch actually helps in the upper levels of the atmosphere to aid in a tornado threat. So that's something to watch. That's why we had a dry air punch when Beryl made landfall, and we had the tornado outbreak in Louisiana all the way to New Orleans. I mean, to New England. That's because we had that punch of dry air aloft that actually enhanced the tornado risk. So now, heading up the road here, the Mid-Atlantic, I'm just going to stick with the Weather Prediction Center here. This is rain between now and Sunday morning. Washout on the way later this week. You know, anywhere from 3 to 5 inches of rain in Virginia. Maryland, same thing. You know, the state of West Virginia will be cut in half. If you live in the eastern side of West Virginia, 2 to 4 inches. The western side, you'll struggle to get an inch. Pittsburgh's kind of a cutoff area. I think central to eastern PA will get 4 to 5 inches of rain, depending on location. New York City will get a good bit of rain. Delaware, New Jersey. And then we head up to New England. You guys are going to get a lot of rain also. Certainly a washout, a quick-hitting washout, I might add. But definitely some rain will add up between now and this weekend. So go on and get prepared for a washout really anywhere and everywhere across the Northeast. And then you look at these winds to add with this rainfall, you know, anywhere from 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts combined. This isn't sustained. You're not going to get a constant 40 mile per hour winds out there or anything like that. But you do want to watch as the low is cutting inland, right? So low cutting inland. So you're obviously getting this flow like this around this low. So this is actually going to probably push water up against the I-95 and the New England Mid-Atlantic coastline. So you do want to watch out for coastal flooding into the tidewater and to the areas of Delaware and southern New Jersey, up into the coastal regions of Long Island, New Jersey, all the way up into southern New England as water is getting pushed up. This is going to there's probably going to be gusty winds with this too. So just be aware of that. Don't let that catch you by surprise, but certainly gusty winds are possible. And then we look at New England too with this, and just due to the higher mountaintops, I think you're going to get some stronger wind gusts in the Green and White Mountains of Vermont and New Hampshire, the Adirondacks. So that's why you see these peaks of 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. So if you live in these areas in the mountains of the Adirondacks, Green and White Mountains, Berkshires, I mean, even like the Catskills, some strong winds are possible. Very strong winds are possible with this. Coastal regions too, you want to watch out. So as far as what's happening weather-wise for today, of course, we're getting Tropical Storm Debby. We just spoke on that. We're even still getting this, this southerly band between Florida and Cuba that continues to kind of sit around here, delivering some stormy conditions across areas of the Bahamas. We got a lot of rain off the coastline of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, but you get up to southern New England, you're waking up to a lot of rain in Boston, points south. We got this energy surging across areas of the High Plains and the Dakotas. Northern Nebraska, you got some energy up here in like southwestern, southwestern Ontario. And then we got even a flash flood warning ongoing right here in southern Arizona. So some rain down there. But as far as the watches, warnings, and advisories today, very hot conditions in Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, even the panhandle of Florida, even some heat advisories down here in southern Florida. And we got some red flag warnings up for the hot pink colors here across the Central Rockies. Dry, need some rain. Flood watches have been pushed all the way up to the southern and central areas of VA too. So excessive rainfall, of course, we got that high risk in the PD of South Carolina, Southeast North Carolina, moderate risk extending outward. So in the high risk in the pink, that's a 70% chance of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance. That's a serious deal. Takes high confidence for a lot of rain for that to happen. That mixed with the fact that you've already received a lot of rain, that's a big factor in today's high risk. Then a slight risk does extend almost all the way to Charlotte, to Columbia, all the way up to Norfolk, Virginia. So if we look at the Storm Prediction Center outlook, we got the tornado risk here in the eastern Carolinas today, and then we do have a marginal risk right here in the middle of the country, Nebraska, Kansas, southeast Wyoming, and then northeastern sections of Colorado included. So we'll have to watch for some strong to severe storms there. But we continue to break down the rest of the country, the southeast. We've already mentioned this. I will mention a little bit of shower activity up in Kentucky this morning. But, we've already broke down the southeast with Debby. Some of these showers, though, could get all the way back to Atlanta. Might make it as far west as maybe like Knoxville, eastern Kentucky. West Virginia today. And then we'll wake up tomorrow morning, and tomorrow's going to be a big day, of course, across the Carolinas. So the Northeast today, we'll continue to deal with some pesky rain this morning across southern New England. We're going to have an opportunity for more showers and storms to develop north of the main of Tropical Storm Debby here in the Mid-Atlantic, the D.C. area, the capital area. West Virginia, some storms are possible. Even Kentucky, a little bit of storm action in PA. Nothing compared to yesterday where the storms definitely hit you guys pretty hard in PA, Ohio, and etc. But we're definitely going to get some storms. Maybe in the Delmarva. Like I said, Maryland, and then we'll see a main push of moisture begin to really move in tomorrow morning across the Delmarva, Mid-Atlantic, New Jersey. A little bit of storm activity possible that you're waking up to in northeast Ohio, maybe some showers in the Finger Lakes region. The south central U.S., just very hot conditions. You're going to be begging for some rain. I just don't think you're going to get it. Some energy will fire off the Rockies. This will bring an opportunity for some storms. In eastern Colorado, northeastern Colorado especially, these storms could pack a punch. Could be some hail, some gusty winds, maybe even an isolated tornado, and eventually that moves into Nebraska. We'll talk more on that here in a second. But Kansas, some rain, some storms will move in late this evening and then move across the northern half of Kansas throughout the overnight, and we'll wake up tomorrow morning to maybe a little bit of rain into eastern areas of Kansas. So the north central U.S., rain will scoot across areas of Minnesota today. I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. Some heavier rain is possible, though, especially north of Minneapolis, kind of between Minneapolis all the way up to the Canadian-Minnesota line. Rainy day across northeastern sections of Minnesota. Rain will begin to move into northern Wisconsin. Eventually tonight into the UP of Michigan, you will deal with some showers, and you'll wake up to those showers tomorrow morning. But just kind of back this up here. I do want you guys to be aware, if you live in Nebraska, southwestern Nebraska especially, and even some storms all the way up into like the Sioux Falls, Sioux Cities region this evening, there could be some powerful storms that make their way from central to southern sections of Nebraska later tonight. And then after those move through, things settle down. We'll just get a push of regular old rain for tomorrow morning in this area. So if we look out west, we got some energy scooting down out of Canada into Montana. So just some steady rain showers throughout the day, depending on where you live. More of that rain and storm activity down in Colorado. We'll get it down here in Arizona, northern and western New Mexico too. Some action in southern Utah. And just kind of a showery day, depending on where you live up in Montana. And then, yeah, that's it. Temperatures today, a pocket of very hot air is something I want to watch out for. And western West Virginia, southern Ohio, and eastern Kentucky. It could get very hot in this area today. The HER model is picking up on a very warm area of air. But of course, you're going to be spared the worst of the heat in the Carolinas, unless you live in extreme western South Carolina where the nose of the heat could inch in. But the Gulf State's very hot. So you're going to get close to 100 degrees, if not higher, across areas of the south central U.S. The Northeast, very comfortable. Great Lakes, very comfortable. A little taste of fall. And, man, those are some cool showers. We're starting to get some cooler colors showing up on the map, guys. I mean, it's still very early, but this is some chilly showers in certain areas up in Montana today. But very hot once you get on the other side of the Rockies. Very hot conditions and warm conditions, just depending on where you live. Nothing too bad across the west. So I'm still watching that cold front, guys. I'll be honest, the model guys has backed off on it, unfortunately. For my folks in the deep south and the southeast, I don't know if the super dry air will make it, but let's hope that it does. But it is still pretty early for it. In a way, I almost kind of rather it happening right at the end of August, beginning of September. That'll kind of set the mood a little bit more. But I'll continue to watch it. I'll try to have a segment for that in the coming videos after we can get Debbie on out of the way. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you again soon. Also, I do want to add, if you made it to the very end of the video, just asking for prayers. And I meant to say this at the beginning of the video. Asking for prayers for my wife today. Today is our first official day of teaching as school starts back today here in multiple districts here in central South Carolina. So, most of you guys know that my wife went to school to be a teacher. She finalized her degree back over the winter and officially starting her first teaching day today. So, of course, she's nervous. So just asking for prayers for calm nerves, and I'm sure these fourth graders are going to challenge the heck out of her. Just praying that she's ready, and I know that she is. So, also asking for prayers just for not just my kids, but for all the kids starting school. Just asking for protection over these schools, and the kids always are close to my heart. So it's always an emotional day on the first day of school and the last day of school for me. And I'm about to actually take my girls to school now. Just knowing that another grade's done started, another grade's gone, and I don't know. I'm not a very emotional guy as far as boo-hooing and crying, but when it comes to my kids, it's a different story. But that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll try to get a video out this evening. God bless.